You know, nobody really prepares you for this part of life, this second half. We're told to plan for our retirement, save money, maybe tick off a bucket list or two, but what about the emotional side of things? It's a tricky one for some of us. What happens when the title goes away, when the kids leave the house, when the body starts doing things that, well, you never really quite signed up for? What happens when you wake up one day after 50 and you realize that you don't quite know who you are anymore? And so, for many of us, this second half of life is full of silent questions. Questions like, what is my purpose now? Have I done enough? Is it too late to start something new? And often we carry these questions quietly with a smile, whilst, of course, inside we're busy trying to make sense of this new identity that's forming. And that's why I think today's conversation is really important. And I'm joined by someone who understands these transitions really well, not just intellectually, but emotionally and professionally, having transitioned to second half of life herself. Dr. Tshepiso Matenjie is a clinical psychologist and a life coach who helps people navigate this messy, magical, and sometimes painful process of becoming who they really are, especially when the old definitions, well, they no longer quite fit. So if you've ever felt lost, restless, unsure of who you're becoming after 50, then this episode is definitely for you. Tshepiso, thank you so much for joining me. I have been looking forward to this conversation quite a lot. And all the time, it's about other people. But to be honest with you, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is something inspired by my own experiences, because I've got a feeling that most people are going through what I'm going through at this time of life. So, but let's start with you. And I'm curious, what inspired you to get into this space of psychological healing and life transformation?
Um, I think partially, let me first start by saying thank you. Thank you for the invite. It was very funny when you called me. I was just giggling nonstop, if you can remember, because I recognized you immediately from your voice. I've been watching you for years and I watch your videos. But coming to your question, um, I think what inspired me has a lot to do with where I come from, my coming up story, my story of origin, and how I got to be a psychologist, all the different things that I went through, and I guess the lessons that I recognized I was acquiring, as well as the people who were mentoring me through all the different stages of my life. A lot of people, even though in psychology you catch people when they're going through adversity, we're all going through change. And for as long as people are learning and developing and growing, they're always in the state of transformation. And then my role is to be that catalyst for change, to be that person that walks beside you, challenges you to, think about where you want to end up and how you want to be and how the best version of you can evolve. And that has been something that even before I knew that that's what I was doing as a child, my mom was eager to make me aware that, no, you've been doing this from when you were still very small. So it's just become a passion. It's a lifelong thing. And then other people dare to say it is your calling. I call it my ministry, but this is it. This is the thing that I make in the universe.
So let's talk a little bit about this over 50 thing. And what I've found, and I've done no research, but I just hear people talking, conversations that I've had. Something happens when you're getting older. And I'm not sure whether it's retirement on the horizon or it's retirement has happened, and you'll no longer have the job of parenting because kids are adults now. There's this almost loss of identity, and you start to question, okay, who am I? Why is this period a bit disorienting?
Um, because of the multiple changes that are happening, but what I like about the way you phrased it is that you are recognizing that the things that used to be your identity anchors, that you used to use as your identity markers, that you are a parent, that you are in your career and you have your professional identity. And for a lot of people in their 50s, they're also experiencing having their parents either being sick and then now you become the carer of your parent, or you are having parents or the elders in your family dying. So you get to experience how fragile life is. And then you are forced to have that existential conversation with yourself about the meaning of life. Is this all it? And now that you are no longer having those identity markers that used to define what matters to you, what drives you, what makes you wake up in the morning, and what fuels you as part of your purpose, you then have to redefine, you have to reinvent, you have to reevaluate. And as a result of that process, and I believe that if you give into it and you ride that flow, then you can come to the stage. But we also have a lot of people who resist it, hey, who refuse, and then instead they regress or they find maladaptive ways of navigating it, which are very self-harming.
So you talked about maladaptive ways, which is interesting. They talk about this midlife crisis. Is that a real thing? And if so, will everyone go through it, or just some people who perhaps are not noticing these moments of redefinement?
Um, I think it's a misnomer actually to call it a midlife crisis, but there is a crisis in terms of the self, where who you used to know yourself to be, those identity markers and anchors are no longer applicable. They are no longer relevant. They no longer make sense. And then you now no longer know what your future looks like. And it's either you realize, I am scared, I am not sure of who I am, and I need to find a new purpose, and I need to reconfigure where I want my life to go, right? And then that exercise of being inquisitive and wanting to explore, to discover, it does mean taking a couple of risks and recognizing your vulnerability, and also even thinking that this sense of who I have been, which, for example, with a lot of married women, they realize I've attached myself to this person. It's no longer working. It's never going to work. I actually now no longer have an excuse because the kids have fled the nest. Now I have to call a thing and then pull the trigger. So because of the negative and the anguish and the stress that comes with it, we call it a crisis. And that actually is a misnomer. But you could also see it as an end of a chapter and the beginning of a one. And that's why for me, it's about transitioning. And then you're seeing it as a process. It's not an end in itself. It's not, it's just part of the journey. You're going through the tunnel to get to the other side, you know? And that's something to look forward to. You don't have to be arrested by the distress of it and the fear and the vulnerability that it creates. You can look forward to something. When I was having this conversation with my psychologist, and I was talking about it as a woman from a menopause side, because menopause is, for a lot of women, it's scary and it is frightening and it is everything. It's like your body's working against you. And she framed it very positively, and hence my choice to look at it from a positive perspective rather than a crisis. She said, Tshepiso, now your body belongs to you. You are now no longer a factory. You can do whatever you please without worrying about introducing another human being here. And you get to enjoy your body and then let your body also now serve you for nobody else's reason except for yours, right? And now you can be your own self again as you were intended to be. And then you can free yourself to do other things, to actualize in other ways. And so as a result, for me, it's about transitioning. It's not a crisis, because that makes it look like this storm in in the teacup is that's all that it is. But no, it's just going through the tunnel to the other side. And I hope people begin to visualize it in that positive way.
So, you mentioned the word purpose as well. Is purpose important in the second half of life? I find my first half, I almost jumped into things. I wasn't sure, to be honest, whether I had a clearly defined purpose. I just did things that I liked and I enjoyed. I'm not sure that I had a vision board that said, this is my purpose in life. But as I've gotten older, I've started to question that a bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So if we, instead of calling it a purpose, we said, what is your why? What would you come up with? Why do you do what you're doing? And why Why are you attaching value and meaning to the things that you are right now? How do they fit in with your bigger picture? And what does that bigger picture look like? Then what would you call that? How would that sit with you?
Um, I guess, much like you, there are certain things that I've been doing um, without thinking often. I would help people, and then I'd find myself in moments of teaching, and I enjoyed that quite a lot. And so over time, I think what resonates with me is helping, teaching, and that kind of thing. And so maybe this channel, even when I was thinking about what to do next, in the end, I just thought, I'm going through this. I'd love for other people to find answers as I look for them as well. So
Okay.
maybe that's a purpose thing. I'm not sure, but I think over time there were markers that said, look, this is what you enjoy doing. You get a lot of fulfillment from this. You feel better after doing X, Y, Z without actually waking up and saying, I shall be a teacher.
Yeah. Okay. And I love that. The anchor, then the defining thing that made you recognize this resonates with me was internal. It wasn't something external. It was not, it was not so much about this is what I want people to remember me by. It was about what was pulling you, what was just coming out of you, right? But the second thing is you can change your mind. It could be, it could resonate with you on a Monday on the 27th of whatever month. And then by the 30th, you realize, nah, not today. And then you release yourself from it. Whereas when you are younger, it's like, no, but this is what I'm supposed to do. This is why I'm here. It seems to be holding you hostage. And so I think what is happening when you are 50, you free yourself from all of those entanglements. You recognize the fact that you are evolving. Some of the things that you find that you defined as who you are, as your identity, as value, as meaning, as purpose, they were based on the younger version of you that was working with whatever else was available at their disposal at that time. But you also get to recognize as you reach this age that you get to trust yourself more and you become okay with something feeling good right now and you acting according to it, and also something not feeling good and you're releasing yourself from feeling like you have a duty to do it. You release yourself from those holds. And then you also become okay with not knowing that you don't always have to be in control and in charge, and you don't always have to have the answer for everything. So ambiguity, complexity, dynamic fluidity is no longer unsettling because you begin to trust yourself that even if I landed on a branch and that branch broke, I can trust that I've got the capacity to fly. So I don't need to have certainty. Hopefully, that's when, in terms of the development of yourself, your ego, your self-esteem, your identity, if it is following in a typical way, let me put it that way. But it doesn't mean it's like that all the time. There are a lot of people who are completely unsettled with this age, and then they feel like, I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't know what I was put on this earth for. They survive traumatic events and they still focus on what did I do that led me here. They face to see the silver lining. And so they can identify with that sense of purpose and that sense of feeling like there's a greater good, there's a reason out there that is bigger than just me.
The other thing I've often wondered is sometimes life's drama is quite obvious and it hits you in the head and you adjust as a result of it. But I just wonder also if as we get older, we may not have events or things that are happening to us, but are we redefining ourselves, or is life redefining us, even if we're not cognizant of it? And is it better to be more conscious of the process, or is it okay to just let it happen as well?
What is funny, in my opinion on that, is whether you are conscious of it, whether you are intentional about it, whether you are self-directed, driven, and very focused towards it, planning it, calculating it to the T's and dotting your I's, you are a co-constructor of your own reality. Whether you're going to say it's because of how I was brought up, it is because of the circumstances from the environment, it's because of the resources I never had, the education I never had, you are a co-creator of your own reality. And when you go through life, if that consciousness is not, it hasn't been awakened in you, and you have been on autopilot, I think reaching middle age, it forces you to wake up. Something wakes up because drastic changes happen, whether they are physical for women, and I do believe even for men, there are physical changes that they go through, but the environment around us forces us. Look at what COVID has made a lot of us come to terms with in terms of how we define employment and what being productive looks like. So certain environmental changes will also give you a reckoning, and then you begin to realize, I need to get out of my bubble and my autopilot, and then realize how the choices I have made, how the habits I've cultivated, how the ways of thinking and believing and feeling have actually contributed to where I end up now, how the people that I surround myself with and the environments where I choose to engage with people in has actually contributed to who I am. And then when you go back into that kind of list, you begin to realize, wait a minute, I can exercise agency. And so now I can have a choice of doing it better. And hopefully that's the message that people get out of this conversation. So that if you have been in autopilot and this conversation makes you realize I need to waken up and stop thinking it will just follow as it is, then it's an issue of, okay, what can I do to take back my power? What agency can I activate within myself? What co-creative role do I want to play so that I pilot my life towards something that actually leads me to a better quality of life overall? Yeah.
Yeah, this life thing. And there's just so many things to try and figure out. So, the other thing is you've had this job for decades, this kind of work for decades. And then they say, plus 60, you're retired, mate. Here's your present and your gold watch. Good luck. And I guess there's some relief for a while to relax. But it's taken this long to get your brain to be this good. And now suddenly they tell you it's okay. You can carry on now. We don't need you anymore. What do we do? You know, building up all this experience, wisdom, and knowledge, and then now, just because of my age, I'm told it's excess to requirements. What now must I do with my life? Because I'm still fit, my mind is working, and yet I've been told that I'm a retiree now, I'm a pensioner. What do I do? How do I manage this?
Oh, you are in a developing country, Peter. Uh, there are so many people that could absolutely benefit from your knowledge and your skills and your experience. And I say this with such grace and humility because I've watched my mom-in-law, my mother, my father, my father-in-law go through the retirement, and they didn't listen to this advice. My mom did. But I saw other people in the family not listening to the advice. And with her, I said, Mama, it's now for Rebecca 2.0, right? Because instead of, and you do go through a grieving process where you are lamenting the loss of professional identity, you are lamenting the loss of whatever other accolades and affirming things that you were doing in your profession, and now you're feeling like everything has been taken away from you. But I do want to encourage people that you get a 2.0 version of yourself. It's an opportunity. So for those of us who are not yet retiring, it becomes important to start thinking about it. And it's not an opportunity for you to start saying, I'm going to buy my dream car, I'm going to travel the world. While that's what most of us do, it's not an opportunity to renovate your house because that money is going to run out very quickly. But what you can do, knowledge and skills and experience that you have, you can go and tutor people. You can go ahead. You've done maths, you know how to add, you know how to read. You are a prolific speaker, Peter. Nothing stops you from grooming young people to talk about their self-esteem, to talk to them about image, about branding. You could literally, as you've been doing on social media, you can educate people, right? And you can use whatever platform that there is, right? The other part is we need people in schools to volunteer. Our teachers are overloaded. A lot of us professionals, when we are looking at retirement, we think staying home is it. Okay. Now we are having a growing need, and I'm not a medical doctor, but I see it in my own family where when our retirees stay home, they're actually somehow being afflicted with all sorts of problems, including Alzheimer's, because they degenerate much more quickly because you stop stimulating your brain. So I want to encourage people. Maybe you wanted to learn how to swim, which is what my mother did. Go and learn how to swim. Maybe you wanted to start gardening and planting a fruit, whatever. Go ahead and do those hobbies. Things that require movement, that require for you to socially interact with other people become important, because those social interactions, they're important for elevating your mood, for making you feel a sense of belonging. They're making you feel a sense of connection. And in terms of your mental health is very good. Activities that still challenge and stimulate your mind, and particularly working with kids, it also makes you feel like you are paying it forward, you're planting it. So your knowledge is not wasted, it's not lost. You can still do something about it. Think about volunteering at your school. Go ahead and be that cool auntie, uncle, or grandpa or grandma that goes to your child's school and reads and helps the teacher to organize the library. Those are some of the things that you can do. Nothing stops you from having a drive to collect school shoes, pads, things that are happening in the community for children who need it, for vulnerable communities. So there's a lot of things that we can do. It is now an opportunity for you to now live and breathe and act in that Ubuntu principle that we all live about. Now it's an opportunity for you to do those types of community impactful work. And that makes a difference than simply going to buy your dream car and then blowing your pension, if I may say so.
Okay, so what about going back to school? Are our brains designed to be able to learn new things? Um, I grew up an accountant. I worked as an accountant. Can I go back to school and become a lawyer, for example? Or as society has taught us, when you're 65, you should be retiring. What do you mean you want to start a whole new career, a whole new path? Is it possible?
100% absolutely yes. I am at the University at Stellenbosch. Guess how many people my age are studying a second PhD and a third master's degree? Absolutely, you can. Um, we spoke about the fact that we talked about neuroplasticity. That means your brain, your cells are constantly regenerating. And the more you stimulate, and I think that people know this, in terms of your brain and the neural pathways that you're creating, if you do not use it, you lose it. So the one way to fight Alzheimer's and other degenerative illnesses is continue to stimulate your brain, do things you've never done before, actively seek movement, find novel experiences, continue to challenge yourself, continue to learn. And it might be as simple as I am right-handed. I typically brush my teeth with my right hand, and I choose I am now going to brush my teeth with the left hand. It might be as simple as instead of doing things the same way that I've always done them, now I change a habit. I change my routine. I start incorporating things that I've never done before. I learn a dance move. I do a TikTok. I go ahead and I braid my child's hair when in fact usually it was my partner who used to do it. It is small things and it can also be big things. I learned to play an instrument. So we need to recognize that up until you're 6 feet under, you're still capable of learning. And the more you expose yourself to new and novel ways of doing things, you are continuing to stimulate your brain. It is never too late. Absolutely, you can. You can go back to school if you can. But remember, you're going to be using somebody else's school fees, eh? The fees are very.
So I had an interesting conversation with a lady some time ago, a friend, and she was beautiful and was a model in her day and all of that. And then as she got older, she said the one thing about aging that was problematic for her was that people weren't noticing her as much as they did before. Is that something that we go through as we get older, that we don't get noticed as much as we did when we were much younger and had so much more vigor, or whatever it is? I reckon men probably go through the same thing, that older people will help them across the street and then carry on with our lives. Is there a less noticing of us, or what is it that's going through one's mind?
Wow. I hear what you were saying, and I'm actually wondering what she was referring to. Because if beauty was that thing that got you, your physical attributes was that thing that got you noticed, recognized, acknowledged, in terms of your self-esteem and your self-concept, it becomes a big thing in terms of how you define who you are. And as you age and you lose it, and I'm saying this because why some women feel they need to go ahead and do plastic surgery to keep looking as young and longer as they possibly can, is possibly because of they understand what the physical aspects of it have to do with their self-esteem. But the reality is that you can hold on to it as much as you can up until you no longer can. And what is an opportunity for you is that, are there other ways that your self-worth, that your self-esteem, that your need to be validated can be done that is outside of that physical attribute? That's number one. Number two, we've spoken about the fact that you've got a wealth of experience, you've got a wealth of knowledge and skills, that if you decided to use them as a medium to get yourself again meaningfully engaged in communities, oh, believe me, people will now remember you and know you. Now the generation 5 will now know who Peter Ndoro is, because of now you are having meaning and an impact on them, and you are able to relate to them on things that matter to them. Then they will still recognize you and respect you and engage with you. But if you disengage from what is happening with what your local community is involved in, if you pull away, of course, nobody's going to see you. That's on the one hand in terms of what I hear you asking. But I am acknowledging also that in our communities, we do see an increase in elder abuse and elder neglect, where as our elders are growing older, they feel like they're not heard. They feel like the words of wisdom that they have, there aren't enough young people who are actually asking for their advice. Instead, the feedback they are given, and I'm just thinking about this one particular lady who said in Zulu, "Angifuni ngami, angifuni," because she just felt like she's only needed in terms of servicing and helping and rescuing people. But people are very abusive to her in the family. And so she had to come to a stage where she was saying, I don't want anything about me because nobody sees me, nobody consults me. People use my space, use my things as if it's theirs, and they're just waiting for me to die. So I recognize that there's a lot of elder abuse and elder neglect, and that level of disrespect of not really recognizing that this person is a human being and they're still here and they still have value. And there's a lot of older people who are experiencing that a lot. Yeah.
Are there, you've helped a lot of people over time. You've listened to a lot of stories over time. Are there typical emotional obstacles that will visit us later on in life that we should start to anticipate and say that I'm likely going to go through this and this is what I need to do about it?
Look, we are all different, but what I can tell you is that some of the things that people struggle with in this phase of their life is regret, and bitterness and resentment, that anger of feeling that now I don't have work to distract me. Now I have to have, is it a karma patterns where I now confront all the things that were done to me that I never resolved, all the things that I wished and I never could do because of I was taking care of kids, of husband, of whatever, and it creates a lot of bitterness. So that's one of the emotions that I would like people to pay attention to. The second one is the grief that goes with opportunities missed, chances not taken, regrets, where there's a sadness in losing who we could have been when you are now confronting the choices that you've made and the consequences that you've landed up at the place you never wanted, and people feeling depressed and aggrieved by everything else that has been that they have that they that they have missed out on, or that they feel they've been victimized on. The other part has to do with when you asked me about, is it too late to learn when you are already in the age where we're considering retirement? Uh, Counseling and life coaching is still suitable. You can still go. There's still skills and competencies that you can develop to still be working on the best version of you. It is not too late. So some of it has to do with people not learning how you are now dealing with a younger generation, with younger people, where how you used to communicate, how you used to express your frustration and how you used to assert yourself is now regarded as abusive. It's not going to be tolerated. So you are letting people move away from you because of you are having maladaptive ways of communicating. You are having maladaptive ways of handling conflict. And because you are an elder, you're demanding respect. And that is something that young people complain about, that there's a lot of dysfunction, there's a lot of trauma that the elders in the family are passing on down to them because they have not really confronted the maladaptive ways of doing things. And then that tears families apart, right? And then, of course, it is their sense of entitlement that I did this, I did that, and I did this for you to get to where you are. Now you are where you are, and now you think you are all that, but you owe me. You owe me because of now it's your turn to take care of me. So there's a lot of adults who are complaining that their parents are doing that to them, that there seems to be, and in the Black community, we talk about Black tax because we link it to the finances, but it's actually not just financial. It has to do with other types of things where now your parent is competing with you. You buy this microwave, they go and buy that microwave. You are doing this with your wife and they're demanding the same thing because they're feeling like, I brought you up. You've got this success in your career because of what I did. So now it's time to pay back. So those are some of the things that some people struggle with. But of course, you also have kids who have made it and they don't know how to include their elderly parents in their lives. They don't know what value they can add in terms of transferring that intergenerational knowledge and skills to their young ones. And I want to encourage that even where you are finding that you are struggling to mix and that intergenerational connection is not there, please go for family therapy, go for counseling, even if what the focus is going to be on how you can learn new ways on how to facilitate that bridge. Because simply cutting people off, people are not, they're not, you can't throw them in the dustbin, you know? So you want to be able to see to what extent you can salvage relationships and how you can heal whatever that needs to get healed. But then it's also okay to realize this is not going to happen. This is too toxic, and actually realize that it's not going to work for you and your children don't have to be exposed to that kind of toxicity.
Are there, I don't know, maybe daily questions that I can ask myself each day to shift my mindset a little bit, maybe, or just to help and guide myself through this new phase of life? Um, because I am older and I can't do some of the things I used to do when I was much younger, and life is different. Are there questions that you can give us that can guide us to start shifting our minds a little bit, to look at our new circumstance in a different way?
What do you still wish for? What do you still have that you would still like to do? What are the things that you've put off because you were busy bringing up kids, you were busy working, and then you said, I'll do them later. And then let's reevaluate them, right? What are those things? Put down a list of them, and then think about if you were to begin doing them, where would you start? How would you go about it? But at least begin with writing them down, right? Now you have a chance. What are those things that you've put off until later? And now you've got a chance to do them. The second one is the gratitude thing. It is not overrated. It's not a cliche. It is important to literally constantly remind yourself what you've achieved. And I say this because of when you are elder, the circle of friends for some people is smaller, and the circle of family members, your chosen family and the family you are born in, gets smaller because now you begin to realize who's right in your life, who's unhealthy. And so it becomes very hard to think about the things that you are grateful for, the things that you are great at, the things that you are sure of, that for you, it's a proof that you matter, that you are worth, and you've made a difference in this life. So the gratitude conversation. So as you wake up in the morning and before you go to bed, to just take a moment and reflect on the things that you feel like you appreciate in your life, that you feel have added value to you, they've added texture, they've added color, they've added taste in your life that you're most grateful about. And then I ask myself if people do this, and I hear my mom saying it a lot, and it has to do with what her aspirations are for us and for my children, but recognizing that her aspirations are not necessarily an opportunity for her to live vicariously through us. And I recognize that. And I wonder as well, What are you putting off from doing because you are hoping your children will do or your grandchildren will do, and somehow that will be testimony that you've done a good job. If you don't take the time to be grateful and celebrate with that which you have done, and you're still hoping that through what your children and grandchildren are doing, it's testimony that you are good, then your self-worth is still defined externally. So perhaps looking at what are the things that you have within your power that you can do to still continue achieving the things that you want, what new dreams, what new things you want to learn. And for quite people in the townships, I see the women will get involved in the churches, they'll do community work, they'll meet every Thursday, and that becomes something they look forward to. That's how they add value. And it's not just about the burden of their children and their grandchildren to make them feel a sense of fulfillment. They find it in other ways. So it's socializing in groups that allow you to find that fulfillment through other activities in the community, and not just put that burden on your children and your grandchildren. So expand your social of network. That would be the third thing. Don't just make it your worth and your sense of connection to come only from your children and your grandchildren. Expand your social network, find other meaningful ways to connect in terms of community, but also in terms of spiritual belonging with other people.
I'm going to ask you a personal question now. I know that a couple of years ago you transitioned to the second half without giving your age away, but are there things that have happened to you that you've learned personally in transitioning, especially given that you see a lot of things in other people? Did you recognize some of those things happening to you? And how have you been navigating this second half?
Yes, there's a lot. I learn a lot from my job, and I'm most grateful because of everybody that I work with is a teacher, right? When they share their story, it resonates with me because something about their life mirrors what I've gone through, whether I've already overcome it or I'm in the process of it. But what I learned about turning 50 and being on the other side of 50 is the value of acceptance. It took a different meaning, and I said uh, with an appreciation of recognizing that I honestly no longer try to change the people that I love that are in my proximal circle. I've learned to accept them as they are and recognize that this is who this person is. There's no amount of yelling, analyzing, psychologizing that is going to make them change. This is who they are, and it is okay. They are allowed to be who they are. They and their God are who made them who they are. All I have responsibility and control over is me. The Stoic speaks about the dichotomy of control. So for me, acceptance was how I recognized how to engage, how to show up, appreciating the dichotomy of control. There's things I don't have control over, and then there's things that I have control over. I have control over how I show up, what I accept, what I choose, what I allow. And then the things that I don't have control over about, I can accept them as they are and then move away from them. That was the first thing. And then there's other things that throughout my age, because I grew up in an environment where academics, hard work, achieving, succeeding, acquiring things was important, and then not just acquiring them because of you are studying and you are doing a profession, but you needed to show up. So it felt like there's a lot that you needed to do, and you constantly had to be performing. You had to not just be a family member in name, you had to do certain things. And I realized we were not encouraged as a family to have fun, to just laugh at ourselves. We would make traumatic things funny and would laugh, but just being able to just take it easy. It's as simple as being able to sit and look at the dishes and not berate myself that there's dishes in the sink, because you could never just sit and watch the dishes and say, no, I'll get to them. But I must also be honest that it's my daughter who's challenged that about me, that you are still coming from a lack mindset, a scarcity mindset, and you're still acting like there's a mother with a box saying, wash the dishes, clean the house, relax. You are the adult now. So learning to just relax, to have fun, to laugh at myself, and to just take things easy. That was the second choice. And then the third one that I learned, and this is only because of when I came to Cape Town, I started engaging with very powerful women. Powerful women who challenged me to realize when I was dreaming small and I could dream big. And then at 50, I've got no excuse to not think about abundance, to not think about wealth, generational wealth, to not think about prosperity. And I remember feeling very anxious that there's no way I can't, this little girl from Mamelodi can't be thinking like that. That was never in my vocabulary. You were just happy to pay your bills and to get your degree and to show up at work. And these women were blowing me out of the water. So at turning 50, that fearlessness, that energy, that vigor that I had with academia, now I'm fearless about business. And because I'm not going to be compromising somebody's school fees, I now am working towards having the level of wealth that makes me feel comfortable that my great grandchild will be fine. They must just work to do whatever they need to do, but they must know that they're going to be covered. I'm also aware that it's given me the confidence to stand my ground, to show up. I always remember Zosie Bini Twins is saying we must take up space. And I feel like I've only learned how to do that at 50. So those are the things that from doing my job and reading, I've only crystallized and have begun to live. And I think only because of my age, now I'm feeling bold enough to can do it without being unapologetic about it.
Okay, and then to wrap up, um, what one idea, what one thing can you leave our audience with that you think if you do this one thing, it can fundamentally help you through the second half of life?
I am torn between keep moving, the value of exercise, and keep learning, the value of, and I think as an educational psychologist, uh, the conduit, one way to learn and to continue developing and is through movement, is through physical activity, but also through learning, as simple as playing Sudoku, intellectual games, having conversations, learning a new language, learning and movement. For me, those are the two important things. I never want to stop learning. I'm a lifelong learner, and I never want to stop moving. I'm a lifelong exercise gym fanatic. Those are the two things. I'm sorry that I couldn't tell you one, but that's for me. That's what I live by. That's what I would like people to take away if they can.
And they are great things. And I'm going to start on those. I've been learning French actually for the last year or so, and I'm getting quite good at it now. And I must say, it really has been quite fulfilling to pick up something new and develop a new skill. It is just such a wonderful thing. So I recommend that. Okay, how can people work with you or follow your work? How do they get hold of you?
I usually say to people, Google me. Google
Okay.
me, you will find me. But I am currently at Stellenbosch University lecturing master's and PhD students. I have a practice in Cape Town and in Somerset West. I also have a practice in the West Rand in Joburg. And yeah, Google me. You'll find me on most social medias. I never remember my handles, but if you Google Tshepiso Matenjie, you will find me. Even if you misspell my surname, you will find me. You told me that you asked ChatGPT. Apparently, ChatGPT knows me.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah,
yeah.
look,
So,
you
so
know what?
probably
This first conversation certainly was a very general one, and we tried to fit in a lot of things. I look forward to having more conversations with you, and we'll
yeah.
focus them on issues. And I'm hoping that our viewers are going to be commenting in the comment section below to say, this is what I want to deal with. This is what interests me. And then we'll put these questions to you. But thank you
You
so much.
you know what I wish? I would love if we get a chance to speak again when we
Yeah,
do, that we have a conversation.
yeah,
Uh that you share also much more, that is much more interactive and
yes, yes.
not just I'm not just
You want to counsel me?
no, I don't want to. I'm actually doing that.
Yeah,
But I've learned from the work that I
yeah,
do that I it's much more potent when I
yes,
connect with a person at that
yes,
level. And I think that's my specialty
yeah,
because I can speak and then I go into my head. But when I engage with you about where
yeah.
you are, yeah,
And you know what?
somebody.
I'm
Yeah.
hearing this and it's like from God's lips to my ears because um when I'm socializing, a lot of people say to me, you're behaving like a journalist still. You know, when you've been a journalist your entire life, certain patterns. And so I end up talking about them and asking questions about them, creating conversations around them and less about me. And so maybe in the second half, this is something I need to learn to do a bit more. So to give more of myself to people. So I'll take you up on that for sure.
Bring it on, bring it on.
Dr. T, it's been amazing. Thank you so, so much. And we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Have a good evening, Peter. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And so that's how we come to the end of today's edition of After 50. Thanks so much indeed for tuning in. Before I disappear, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to remind you to watch each episode as it comes out. Please comment in the comment section below. I really would love to hear the kind of conversations that you want us to have and the kind of people that you want me to be talking to. This After 50 journey belongs to all of us. Until the next time, take care.